Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, the 28th of May, 2025, and today is day 600. 600 days of violence, bloodshed, trauma, bombings, hostages being held, detentions, millions of people living under the threat of war, and Palestinians in Gaza under ethnic cleansing and what the ICJ says could be probable genocide. At this conference, I'm here in Bern, Switzerland, on Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh. I've been sitting next to a PhD in history who teaches genocide studies at UCLA. He's not an Arab, he's not Palestinian, and he said to me, "What do you think's happening in Gaza?" He said, "I'm a genocide scholar." In other words, there are no other words that are appropriate to use. Many disagree, but honestly, I don't care what you call it in this moment. Let's not fight about that. Let's just do everything we can to make it stop. Everything we can to say enough. Everything we can to get immediate humanitarian assistance and full access into Gaza. Doing everything in our power through prayer, petitions, seeking our governments, using leverage, economic or otherwise, to bring an end to violence and atrocities against the Palestinians in Gaza, to release hostages, against Israelis along the border, Jews around the world, Muslims who are experiencing discrimination, an end to violence, pursuing peace. Gaza's health ministry in the last 24 hours said that 28 people were killed and 179 were wounded in the Gaza Strip, and at least one Palestinian was killed and 48 others were wounded when forces opened fire on a crowd, overrunning a new aid distribution site in the Gaza Strip set up by Israeli and US-backed foundation, the Gaza Health Ministry said today. So just yesterday, I think, was the first day, maybe it was the day before, of this new foundation's work, and things got out of control yesterday, and at least one people were killed, 48 people were wounded, to the point to where today the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation initially did not set up services. Yesterday, what happened was thousands of Gazans stormed the American Aid Center at Al Alam roundabout, seizing all food parcels and tables inside, dismantling barbed wire and helicopters. This prompted them to intervene to protect the Americans, and the situation spiraled out of control. Today, it was announced that the US-backed aid group halted its distribution after the hub was overrun by crowds on the previous day. And I heard from some online private communications that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which of course has been tasked with being the primary distributing agency in the Gaza Strip, announced that its hubs would not be open this morning due to arrangements that needed to be made following yesterday's events, in which the hub saw the crowd overrunning the site. Now, one of the pieces of news that broke this morning was that the opposition head, the member of the Knesset, Yair Lapid, questioned the government about the source of funding for aid during a Knesset debate on Monday. And ultimately, it was all over Israeli news today that Mossad is paying for humanitarian aid in Gaza. So Lieberman wrote on social media, hundreds of millions of dollars at the expense of Israeli citizens. And so that's not yet been substantiated, but it's been in Israeli news. The Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention posted on social media that the US-backed distribution of aid using ex-military staff is a weaponization of food and a grotesque mockery of humanitarianism. This cruel spectacle is meant to distract from Israel's plans to forcibly displace all Palestinians from Palestine. Such action is as far away from humanitarian aid as one can go. We call it what it is, a tool of genocide. So what are Israel's plans? I don't know if you've heard of the Gideon's Chariot. So Gideon's Chariot is the name of Israel's latest plan in Gaza. This was released in early May, around the 9th. Prior to the Middle East visit by President Trump, the Israeli army announced they were planning to seize control of the Gaza Strip. We talked about that. They are planning to displace the entire population into a small land area in the south to provide Palestinians with only enough food so that they don't starve to death as part of an expanded military operation, which is ominously called Gideon's Chariot. This biblical name refers to mighty warrior from the Old Testament. Israel's security cabinet unanimously approved this plan on May 4th, hours after the country's military said that it was strengthening its capacity to operate in the besieged territory and mobilizing tens of thousands of reservists. So we talked about all those details, but I wasn't aware that the name of the plan is Gideon's Chariot. The plan and aspects of which have been implemented after Trump's leaving the Middle East began because a ceasefire agreement was not reached. In Israel, the Knesset approved the first stage of proposing a bill to establish a special court to address suspects accused of genocidal acts. 39 members of the Knesset voted in favor, 1 was opposed. And today, the 600th day since the Hamas attacks on October 7th, 2023, there have been widespread protests all across Israel, with several calling for the return of hostages, the end of war, and the establishment of a state commission of inquiry. In Syria, the IDF said it established a medical clinic in Hadar, a town located in the south of the state, meant for the treatment of the Druze population in Syria. 500 Druze Syrians have already been treated in that particular clinic. And the United Nations Atomic Watchdog had said today that the jury's still out on negotiations between Iran and the U.S. over Tehran's advancing nuclear program, but described the continuing negotiations as a good sign. Internationally, Indonesia's president said that Indonesia is ready to open diplomatic relations with Israel if Palestine's given independence. And today, just now, is finishing the second session of our mini course hosted by the Catholic Advisory Council. So the 3-part mini course hosted on Zoom explores Catholic Christian communities in the Holy Land and how they're responding to the challenges of life in the occupied Palestinian territories. This includes healthcare, education, the defense of human rights, religious freedom. Conversations highlight stories of resilience, compassion, and advocacy from those working on the front lines. Today's part 2 is about building a peaceful future and the state of education, exploring how schools and educators rooted in Christian tradition are equipping students for leadership, coexistence, and hope in the midst of conflict. The speakers today are Brother Alejandro Serna, Doctor and Dean of Education at Bethlehem University, and Sami El-Youssef, the Chief Executive Officer of the Latin Catholic Patriarchate in Jerusalem. So that's an update on this 600th day. May God continue to go before us in our efforts towards peace. In the name of Christ, amen.